We built btwb to support independent gyms. These gym owners have unique journeys that led them to create incredible communities in their towns or cities all around the world. Spotlight is going to help tell these stories and celebrate these people. All right, Carla, I appreciate you making some time this morning for us to chat.
Sure.
So, what's your appropriate title? Is it owner, founder, co-founder of CrossFit Federal Way? What's the official title?
Currently owner,
Okay.
initially the financier when my son bought it, but currently now the owner.
Okay. Oh, so it was a gym that existed and you guys came in and took over.
Right. It was established in 2012 with the
Okay.
original owners back in the day and went through a couple of exchange of hands. And my son had a vision to own a CrossFit gym, and he bought that 3 months before the world shut down.
Oh,
So we
go.
had a
Okay.
good
Okay.
time.
We'll dive into that.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, what a entry. But you said your initial kind of step into this whole world was all the way back in 2012. You used to volunteer at the Northwest Regionals. Tell me about that. That's a very cool way to get involved.
Yeah, got hooked up with doing CrossFit with that, but I volunteered. It was Memorial Day weekend, happens to be my birthday weekend, and my
Oh,
family
no.
had no plans. So I said, well, that looks like fun. I think I'll go volunteer for that. And they let me do the media team. So I interviewed athletes all weekend, and we covered it and posted everything on the old game site and wrote articles, and it was just so much fun. And I loved the people. They made such a difference. And then at the end of the weekend, we had our athletes heading off to Carson, and somebody said, let's go work out. And it was like, wow. And I thought I was going to a CrossFit like gym, and realized after 3 days of watching everybody work out and achieve their goals, we weren't. So I went
What do
looking
you
for
mean
one.
by that? You said you thought you were going to a CrossFit like or style gym, but you weren't. So what did you realize is the difference between the two?
I saw the movement standards. I saw people with a flow to their workout. It wasn't just lifting heavy weights or anything like that. There was a real methodology behind what was done, even though we were working with high-end athletes that were looking to achieve the sport of CrossFit, if you will. And we weren't doing any of those sorts of things. I'd never seen a pistol before. I hadn't seen any of those sorts of movements in our gym, and realized there was a different level that was, being promoted, but not being actually implemented at my gym. And I
Interesting.
enjoyed the environment and the people so much. I wanted to do more of what they did.
And so after that weekend, it inspired you to shop for a new gym.
Correct.
And what was that journey like to find a new home and where did you land?
I had been looking or whatever, talking with a physical therapist that I was working with, and she was very familiar with CrossFit. And we identified three that were located pretty close. Actually, one of them was this gym. And
Mm.
then there was one in Auburn, and there was another one in, at the time, Sumner, called Rainier CrossFit. And as she was reading through the bios of the coaches, she looked at Curtis and Lori's bio, and she said, go here, they know what they're doing. And walked in. And because they've had people walking going, yeah, I can do CrossFit, I'm good. She made me audition.
That's
So
amazing.
you put me through a heck of a workout, and she said, okay, you're good. You don't have to do on-ramp.
Oh,
And
I see. To see
that
if you
was
had to
kind
do
of
the
fun.
on-ramp or not. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you were in good hands there with Curtis and
Yep.
Laura. You stumbled upon a good place to kind of begin your real CrossFit journey.
Absolutely.
And so you eventually wound up becoming, a gym owner, I guess, at the request and dream of your son. But how long were you with at Rainier CrossFit? And then what made you and your family say, you know what, we're going to do this on our own?
Um, we were with Rainier from that point on, until we even went through the pandemic. We did workouts over Zoom, all of that sort of fun stuff. We were using Beyond the Whiteboard at that point as well to track everything um, that we were doing, even though we're all doing it remotely. And then when the son decided to do that, we got very busy doing a lot of, we handed out all our gear during the pandemic because we were shut down for 9 months that first year he was in business. So we were there to support and help. but we stayed active with Rainier as long as they were accepting, um, doing their things. And then they had to move it into actually up near where they live into Holly, which is a area south of us here in Federal Way. And at one point, they just finally had to um, not close their doors per se, because they're still very active in the CrossFit space.
Mm-hmm.
They have a older son who had some special needs, and having people in their area and in their gym was not working out. So they had
Right.
to essentially go virtual, which is fine. And then we just decided to come over here and get to know this community and start to help. So we went out and got our level ones. Elliot asked us to just, please help with some coaching. So Dad and I went and got our level ones. We drove to Spokane where Curtis was doing a level one, and because we're gonna not take it back from anybody else.
Right.
And then one by one, thing by thing, life happened. And Elliot had to step away from the gym, and we just ended up doing more and more and more. Now, I was busy building a photography business and doing some other things like that, but I love what we do. I love when people walk in the door and we make them better every day. And that's, part of our logo, that it's just important that people come in, they get a good workout. I want it to be the hardest thing they did, but I want them to get a win. And I just found I have a real passion for that. So
Mm.
life happens and we just stepped in, and now this is kind of our baby, and we're making sure that we provide the best opportunity for anybody that walks through our doors.
So that gym existed. You all start attending as members, if I'm following this correctly, and then the opportunity to own it presents itself. You pull the trigger on it, and then 90 days later, it's the pandemic.
Right. Actually, Elliot was here coaching and coached for a year.
Okay.
And then with the opportunity, he got approached by the then owner. Hey, would you be interested in buying the business? And it was always a passion of his to someday own a business, and he'd love to do a CrossFit. He was a very good coach. And that's where that transition occurred.
Well, it must have been pretty easy to have that gym during the pandemic because Washington State had a pretty chill, relaxed response to all that.
Yeah.
How, how, how
Yeah.
in the world did you all navigate that?
Well, we handed out our gear to the members. They signed it out. We were closed for 6 months solid, and while being closed, every day I would videotape him doing, presenting a workout. And he
Mm,
might show how to put a bunch of books in a backpack. And okay, let's lift this, let's go run. So we did 6 days a week of YouTube videos
oh
showing
my
what the
goodness.
workout was going to be with the equipment already handed out. And then we did that for 6 months. And then they let us kind of come back in. We had to square off. I think there was 10-foot squares, and you had to
Mm,
square, and you couldn't step out of your square and wear a mask and all that stuff. And we know how that landed. So
hmm.
we did the best we could. Then the state shut him down again.
Oh,
And at
really?
that point,
Again?
because gyms were open for a minute, and then they shut him down again. And he's like, he got very belligerent, and I totally understand, because I'm doing things to help people be healthy. Health is the most important thing right here, and you're shutting me down. So
Mm,
it was closed for 9 months that first year in business. It was pretty
wow,
frustrating, to
to
say the
say
least.
the least. But
But we
man,
just
and
found
I
a way.
mean,
We found a way to, because I guess there's this Conrad attitude that we have. In fact, we have a little medallion at the Pike Place Market that says, Conrads don't quit.
nice, nice.
Kind of our family theme, that we find a way to get it done. Life gets hard. Well, are you going to go up the mountain? Or are you going to go around the mountain? Or are you going to but you're going to get around the mountain somehow. Um,
Do you have any recollection of, not exact numbers, but your general clientele that you had? Then it shuts down. You have to go to this full remote. It's for quite an extended period of time. Then you're finally able, let's say, for real, to come back in person. Did you retain 100%, 50%, 75%? Like, do you know how many people ballpark stuck around through that and then came back when the doors opened up again?
I'd say we retained probably 90% through that.
Oh,
And
wow.
then when it was time to come back, and this is my opinion, there was so much fear still being promoted.
Ah,
Weren't sure.
right. I
They
didn't
really
even think of
weren't
that.
sure. And we spent a lot of money cleaning and disinfecting and all those sorts of things all the time. But
Mhm.
people have to make their own decisions. So I would say we came back maybe with 75%
Okay.
of what we originally started with before the pandemic shut down.
Okay. Gotcha. And now here you are today. You said you've got your um, side business of photography and things like that.
I
Is
did.
it your son's full-time gig running the gym now?
It is not. He had to step away for some health reasons, which were fine. And now it's really my full-time gig. So
Okay.
it's what I get to do.
Okay. There you go. And so, one of the interesting things told me via email when we were kind of going back and forth, setting this up was, would you mind sharing a bit about like your motivation and fitness journey? And you said that one of the things you keep in the front of your mind was, you've had family members that get later on in years and what functional capacity should look like compared to what it does look like for the average American. What were you talking about with that?
Um, Briefly, my I grew up in the east side of the state of Washington, a farm girl, raised by my grandparents. My dad was a test pilot with the Air Force and sadly died in service of our country. He was part of that Right Stuff era in the early 60s. And my mom then had to move back home with her parents after that with a kid in tow.
Hmm.
Um, and what what that um, taught me was my mom was very dynamic, very involved, small town. My family was very busy. Everybody knew my mother. She was on the fair board. She did this. She ran the local Miss America program. She did all those kinds of things. And then when she retired, she worked in the restaurant industry as well. When she retired, she basically decided she was going to sit
Mm, mm-hmm.
all day. She discovered Depends and it was over. And I love my mom. I know all the sacrifices that she made for me. I totally understand it, but it was very concerning to see that decision made. And what I saw was a dynamic, vibrant woman. It's kind of like her spirit died and she waited for the body to catch up.
Mm-hmm. I've seen that happen.
Yeah. And so a couple of spills. One day she apparently was on her way to the bathroom. We chose to continue to live over here, though she was 3 hours away. But I had people checking on her all the time. She, on her way to the bathroom, fell and could not get up.
Mm-hmm.
And she was on the floor for about 18 hours.
Oh,
And I wouldn't
wow.
know. We didn't have a lifeline. We didn't have
Sure.
anything. Yeah, and so luckily somebody came to take her to lunch and found her and got her to the hospital. So
Holy
after that,
cow.
we set up things so that she would have a way to get help should it happen
Mm-hmm.
again. And sadly, it did happen again. And that then led to assisted living and all of that. But I looked and said, if not moving is going to be, that's my destiny, then
Mm-hmm.
I have to fight for that. And it's obviously a very personal side of things, but I believe that from 30, maybe 40 on, your health is earned and that you really need to
Yeah.
work at it. And so we have an awful lot of athletes who are maybe more mature. I got several husband and wife couples that come in and work out together. And that's really what we do when we sit down and kind of do a no sweat intro with them. It's like, what do you want? Where do you want to be 20 years from now? Do you want to be able to get off the floor when you're 95?
Right.
And I think a lot of people don't think about that as a goal. No, I want to lose 20 pounds. That's awesome. We'll help you do that. But what you're going to have is, what do you want? How do you want this to end, if you will, or what's your ultimate goal? Do you want to be a burden on your children or do you want to be functional for the rest of your life? We want to help you do that.
I mean, I love that. I'm all in for that 100%. And, hopefully those later years in life, um, you've got more free time to
Mhm.
actually enjoy and do some things, and you have a body that has some functional capacity to take that trip, to go on the hike, to play with your grandkids, to do whatever. And if you finally busted your tail your whole life to hopefully be in these golden years. You don't have to, go to the 9 to 5 every day, and now you can't do anything.
right?
I don't think that's the latter the latter portion of
No,
time on this planet that most people would want. But you're right, they don't think about that.
no, you don't. You think, oh, you think I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be fine.
Not
No
going to happen to
problem
me.
with that. Yeah.
I'm different.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it is a use it, fitness is a use it or lose it thing. A range of motion is a use it or lose it thing. Like it's there's a reason you're like, Greg Glassman used to say that we've all seen it, the family dinner or holiday where one of the older relatives needs help getting off the couch. You got to pull them up to the couch. Like it's you don't want to have somebody pull you up from the couch. You want to be able to do that under your own power for as long as humanly possible.
I totally agree.
Man, no, I think that's spot on. If that's what you all have going on at your gym and you're helping people achieve those goals, I think you're crushing it personally. I mean, that's exactly what I think everybody should be
You're
doing.
right.
Hey, if you go to the games, that's cool. Hey, you've
Yep.
got a 100 kilo squat snatch, fantastic. Um, but you don't need that 100 kilo squat snatch to be amazingly fit and capable for your entire time on planet Earth. Like it is what it is, and the two can coexist, and even under the same gym, somebody can be chasing this, and this person's just chasing functional capacity, and we're all good to go. So that's that's very cool. I can see that why it's such a motivating driving force, and gives you some passion for walking into that gym every day. How would you said a bit on maybe on the more mature side, but how would you describe the vibe of your gym? Let's say somebody's never been to CrossFit Federal Way and they're gonna, check it out. Is it younger? Is it older? Does it have a competitive flavor? Is it a lot of parents with kids? Like what's the vibe there?
We probably, I mean, based on certain crowds that come at certain times, there's a little bit of the competitive athletes probably show up and they're more mature athletes. We've had a couple athletes and members that have qualified for going to the games. The last one was semis a couple years ago.
Nice.
She did really well, and right now she's training to be a firefighter.
Cool.
So, that all that investment she made in herself is paying off in a new profession. Um, we've, kind of had competitive because that was kind of the nature, in the 2014 through 2017, was CrossFit. The games got all the attention, if you will.
Hmm.
But the functionality of Glassman's method and what was there remains. And we're very loyal to what that is about. Because you can go win, a competition, that's awesome, but we want you to win every day. So, and sometimes what you're tested on a given day is different than what it was if you were in a competition. I would say our vibe though is, more probably 30, 40-year old folks. So we're not, against that. We also sublease an area to a dive team. So we've got
Hmm.
divers here when they're doing their dry land training who
Okay.
are both Olympic level, and two of them are going to the Junior Olympics in Croatia. So, I mean, we
Awesome.
support, excellence in all things, and it doesn't have to be that. In fact, I have a young man who just started about I'd say 3 weeks ago, and dad brought him in, found out he is a boxer. He loves doing that, and he's probably about 12, and
Okay.
second in the nation last year, and he wants to be first in the nation this year in his
Wow.
subdivision. So he came in and started doing CrossFit at 5:30 in the morning with dad, and he's loving it. And dad has already seen improvement in just these few first weeks in the way he's hooking in and making contact in his sparring training. So that's pretty awesome.
That's incredible. I mean, that's just rewarding and fulfilling not only for the athlete, but then for you as well to see that, development and improvement with somebody like that who has like some serious goals. Good for him. Wow. Second in the nation is crazy. So anyone familiar with running a gym knows that most people underestimate just how much darn work it is to do it and to do it well and all the behind the scenes
That's
stuff
what
that
they
has to
call
occur
it.
for the people that actually walk in the door and like, lift the first barbell and all that. So you got a lot of options out there. Why BTWB? Why the all-in-one?
The all-in-one because I had experience with my Beyond the Whiteboard account. I kept it all these years because I thought it was comprehensive. I had all my data. I didn't want to just have to transport it or move it to another platform. And there are a lot of options.
Mm-hmm.
Very confident with what we had. So when I was introduced to the all-in-one last year, I said, absolutely. We got 3 different platforms. None of them work together. So you'd have to load your workout stats in this one and check in with this one and do that with that one and pay with this
Right.
one. I thought that's stupid. So when this came around and talking with everybody at Beyond the Whiteboard, it made perfect sense to streamline our services, make it so that we don't have to think about it. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the, one of the first things
Right.
that media is like, don't make me think, tell me what I need to do. So we have
Right.
an app that does that for you made perfect sense to me.
Well, it's funny, it's like the team at btwb, they've been workout tracking forever. They had no intentions of building an all-in-one, but they actually, from the community, from gym owners, heard repeatedly what you said, like, I don't want 2 or 3 different things. I want something that actually works together one. So like that wasn't their intention, so it was
Right.
kind of driven from the community, if you will. Well, let people know maybe they're traveling around, they find themselves in Seattle, they're bebopping around Washington State, kind of self-promote. How can people find out about you, find out about your gym, links, websites, Instagram? Well, what is it?
You can find us, CrossFitFederalWay.com is our standard website. And that way you can go in and book an NSI if you happen to be dropping in. We also do drop-ins and that's great for traveling athletes. Instagram, I think it's CrossFit CFW Federal Way. They're all different because they were all made prior to us. But
Mm,
if you look for CrossFit Federal Way, we pop up pretty well. Our SEO is pretty strong, getting stronger every day.
very cool. Well, Carla, I really appreciate you sharing your story and a bit about your gym. And you're about 45 minutes from where I am. So if I find myself in that area, I'll pop in and say hello actually in person.
Would love to do that
All right. Have a good day. Thank you.
too. Thanks.